Okay, hello everyone, in person as well as online. A very warm welcome to the NUS Open House 2022, as well as to the College of Humanities and Sciences. We are so happy to have you here with us. Thank you very much for joining us for our specially curated masterclass. This morning we have with us Assoc Prof Elmie Nekmat, who's going to be talking to us about social psychology of social media. Yeah, so thanks everyone, and enjoy the talk. So over to you.
Thank you, Mark. Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you for making time on a Saturday morning. I know it's kind of tough to wake up at 9 a.m. or earlier, 7 a.m. to actually come to join us here. So I have quite a bit to share with all of you, so quite a bit to cover. So I'm just going to straight into my slides, and I'll leave behind at the end of the session today some Q&A, okay? Just a little bit of introduction is what Mark has actually mentioned of me. I'm currently the Associate Professor for Communications and New Media at the Department of Communications and New Media and the Assistant Dean for Research in the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, right? So you know all of you are coming in the College of Humanities and Sciences, and here we have the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences and what we are offering you in terms of the Department of Communications and New Media. So I'm going to cover a little bit, it's a little bit of sharing, a little bit of a taste of what we are covering in some of our classes. So be prepared to have, it's not moving anymore. Give me a minute. Okay, yes. So be prepared to have a little bit of some conceptual discussion or sharing. And then I will share with you about what we actually do, or what students actually do in our major, basically in communications and new media. So part one, again, I'll start with sharing with all of you the impact of new media, all too familiar to for all of you, basically the generation that was born largely in the earlier part of your life into new media or into digital or social media. And then I will go into a little bit of sharing of how then do we understand new media, because some of you might ask, some questions are, I thought technologies are in more scientific, right? It's hard technologies, it's computing. So what about technologies that we need to understand from a humanistic, from a social science perspective, right? So basically, what I'm going to share with you is the humanness, the socialness, or the individual aspect of technology. For example, social media, the word social in social media means that there's a social aspect of the media, right? Of the new media. And it is this social aspect that's actually driving the use of social media or the use of new media. So without human interactions, without humans, okay, give me a minute. Yeah, well, wait for them to settle down. So this is a little bit of a teaser of the real life classroom. It's been COVID period, right? And we've been teaching through Zoom sessions, right? Learning from home, working from home. So, you know, in a physical setting, sometimes a little bit of distraction might actually push you off your focus. But anyway, okay, is it okay? You all settle in? Okay, I'll just give you know, those who are just joining us time to settle in their seats. Thank you. Okay, then we go into a little bit of a conceptual discussion on the social psychology of social media. Maybe I will share with you one or two concepts that help us explain individual behavior on social media, and how then can we use these individual behaviors or community behaviors on social media to actually implement positive changes in work, in life, in society. And then I will share with you some examples of our student experiences or student projects that have been done in our major or in our module specifically. All right. By these individual behaviors or communities, I think all of you are familiar with cancel culture, right? Technologies do not cancel people. It's people on technologies canceling people, right? It's groups in technologies that are canceling people. And what are these group behavior motivated by? And can we harness with a good understanding of these group behaviors, with this understanding of how the group or the people or community affect individual actions on social media? Can we, for lack of a better word, manipulate these behaviors and harness it for social good? and for work. Okay, so this is what this module or this particular topic or this particular masterclass is about. So whether you agreed or not, new media, specifically social media, has indeed transformed society, right? It's not about whether society was changed by new media, but on how new media is impacting society, all right? Basically, one aspect of new media affecting society is digital citizenship. So all of us now, vis-a-vis our relations with people, relations with the government, relations with authorities, relations with school authorities, lecturers, are now via new media, via computer-mediated communication. And the functions and the kind of activities that we do or we need to do, such as paying fees, such as going to hiring, such as working, are now largely done by computer-mediated technologies, right? Digital technologies. So what it means for us as a citizen of a country or a citizen of a university, for example, right, is that we have become digital citizenry. We have become a digital citizen. So what does it mean to function well as a good digital citizen versus becoming a digital citizen? Becoming a digital citizen means that, particularly the younger generations, for those who are actually very active on social media, you're actually functioning to create your identity while actually trying to function and trying to find your place in industry, in society. So how do you then become a digital citizen? This becoming a digital citizen on social media is no longer bounded by the country, no longer bounded by the state. In fact, how you define yourself as a digital citizen is very much dependent on your friends from the UK. In this case, your friends and families, or even people you know, or people you do not know from Ukraine that are suffering from the war, right? So what it means is that we are in the process of continuously becoming a digital citizen impacted by the global classroom or the global environment due to social media. So how do we cope with these changes in society, right? I'll go in a little bit about technology determinism and social determinism or social shaping. Some very broad ideas that we discuss in the in communications and new media. More often than not, we always hear this. Okay, come on, let's go. Yeah. Okay, more often than not, we always hear people asking the question, no, it's not social media that is affecting society. It's actually society that's affecting social media. You get what I mean? Yeah, so for example, in all these kind of movements, social movements for social causes, that has changed society. Some would argue that no, it's not because of social media or new media that this movement gets formed. It's because of the question, it's because of the challenges, it's because of the state of the society that has caused such movements and such changes in society. So these are the broad questions that we ask. So is social media or new media really that important? Or is it because of people's way of living, that how they live, the problems that they face in everyday life that causes such kind of transformations and movements in society? Well, where we are coming from in social media, in our module, is that it's both. It's social shaping of technology. It's the current situation, living situation, as well as the facilitation of the media. And I'll go a little bit more on how does media or social media facilitate such kind of movements. Here's a little bit more of digital citizen, and in the broader national landscape, there's a very much heightened need for awareness, skills, and literacy. I'm sure these are buzzwords that you see everywhere around on social media, on your Facebook feed, on your Facebook feed, on your Insta, on your TikTok, that people are talking about, raising awareness of the harms and the benefits of social media, having the skills and the literacy basically to deal with social media. Not only the hard aspect of skills, right? Programming and how do you create content and how you distribute messages on social media, but also having the literacy, the soft skills, and the ability to communicate graciously, friendly, in a nice and helpful manner on social media, right? And the challenge in all this aspect of becoming a digital citizen is that in Singapore and most other societies, it's stratified. You will have the younger generations who are so used to social media, you don't need to teach us, right? And we have the older generations that are migrants to social media. So where are they in this level of awareness, skills, and literacy? And then we have the the middle-aged citizens, which are very familiar with social media but do not have the time to actually use social media in an effective and thoughtful manner because of the responsibilities that they have to do, such as work, taking care of family, and so forth. So therein lies the challenge, and the differences of social media that is embedded in the lives of all these different people. How then do we make sense of it? How then can we use it to actually benefit society and create a change in society? So when it comes to social psychology of social media, right, we are actually interested in this one big question. What shapes our basically human behaviors when it comes to the consumption of new media? We're interested in answering this question, and the ability to answer this question will enable us to create strategies, to create actions that are more predictive, that are more able to actually create the impact that we want to create. So this is the main question that we are going into. Now, as I mentioned, the first question that I raised in this class is the question of is it really important, social media, or is it society that's actually affecting the use of social media or creating social change? There are three views to it. I was told that this class was not supposed to be dense in a very typical university class setting, so I will not belabor and go so much into the concepts here, but I will just have to share with you the ideas. Maybe some of you are familiar with it, you've covered it in your previous studies. Maybe some of you might want to read further on it after today, right? So one of the idea, or one of the tension is, on one hand, is technological determinism, right? So what it means is technology determines. So with the coming of technology, such as the steam engine, such as the internet, and now the social media, changes in society are driven by this advent of technologies. Without the advent of these technologies, we will not be able to see cancel culture in such an extent. We will not be able to find umbrella movement to such an extent. So there is a very strong line of thinking and argument that we need to confront when it comes to the role of technology or new media in impacting society. And that kind of view or worldview is somehow couched, embedded in the idea of technology determinism, right? A very strong feel that social change is the result of technological innovation, and it's inevitable that we change because of technology. The other aspect is social determinism, that basically it's society that determines how technology is used and therefore the changes that occur in society. So technology is in this way looked at merely a tool, a neutral tool that is used by society, right? So social interactions and constructs alone determine the invention, development, adoption, and usage of technologies. So why do we have the new media? Why do we have internet? Why do we have Facebook? Why do we have now TikTok, where information and content are in bite-sized 30 seconds to 15 seconds kind of content? Why do we have that? Well, from a social deterministic point of view, it is because human calls for it. Again, right? It's questionable, right? But where we fall into, or where we actually try to merge both of them, is that, and moving forward in this new paradigm, we look at the use of technology and its impact on individual behaviors as what we call the SST or the SSOT, which is basically the social shaping of technology. So basically you have here technology driving change and human driving change. So there is a level of interaction here. So basically what it means is that humans are using technology in ways that might not be the reason why technology is created to begin with. They're using it in creative ways to actually create the impact they want, to get the result they want. And if that is the case, then technology do not exactly determine. Technology just provide them the platform for them to use it in creative ways. So there is some social human intervention in the use of media, and there is some technological intervention or technological provision in the use of new media, and we need to understand them by the affordances or the characteristics of this technology. So therein lies where we in new communications and new media come in actually enabling all of you to understand that, look, when we want to understand the use of human, the impact of human use on social media or new media, on work, on journalism, on movements, for example, we must really understand the idea of affordances. What is it about the characteristics of the medium themselves, medium itself, and how do humans use it, right, to actually create all this change and to achieve what we want to achieve. So this is the idea of affordances. And in terms of social psychology, we really looked at these affordances and how human actions and human thinking are implicated in them. Right, so we move on to affordances then, right? So I kind of highlight that understanding affordances is key or important in understanding how technology and human creates behaviors, right? So basically, let me go through some aspect of affordances and how we can actually distill these affordances from social media. Everybody says social media, yeah, everybody knows social media. And sometimes it's a running joke in my class that, you know, I'm not an expert in social media. Every one of us is an expert in social media, right? So why do I need to teach about social media? So the value that I bring, or the major bring in social media, is that we enable you to actually look at social media in a more distilled, a more functional manner that enable you to apply this across different social media platforms, right? Okay, so how then do we understand what is social media? If I were to ask you what is social media, some of you might say TikTok is social media. Some of you might say Facebook is social media. Some of you might say WhatsApp, WeChat, Weibo is social media. Some of you might say, no, Prof, look, it's actually blogs. Blogs are social media. Oh, no, it's actually emails. Emails are social media. Do you agree that emails are social media? You see, so it's a moving concept, and we would most definitely have new forms of social media. So how then so basically we want to discuss about the impact of social media. We need to distill it into its common affordances or common characteristics. Then we can actually analyze it throughout and understand it across all evolving aspects of the new media. So basically new media or social media is a moving target. So how do we distill these aspects? Well, if you were to look at so if you look at one definition that we hold when it comes to social media, it's a platform or that enable one to actually curate and maintain. Curate means to select and to build, right? Having the autonomy, having the ability to do that. Maintain means to nurture and start to grow and build relationships, and or even remove relationships, to actually constantly do this on the media or on the platform, right? So what are the common characteristics that we have in social media? We have individual profiles. So in social media, whether you agree with me or not, largely if you do not have your profile, you do not have the identity, you are not on social media, right? The identity can be your real identity, the identity can be a pseudonym, the identity can be anonymous or fake identity. Primarily, that is a personal profile. And that's what social media has. We have a list of friends. So if you're just alone and you do not curate or have a list of friends, networks, likers, followers, you are not using social media. That medium is not actually social. You affiliate yourself to groups, right? Because social media works on the basis of interest, in the basis of identity. So you use this group to actually build your personal identity to create your own network of people. You need to have interaction functions, right? So this is the function of all media, but it is the ability to interact as much as possible as humans, right? The emojis, through videos, and so forth, right? It has to be participatory, means that it must enable a platform, a space where everyone can come and participate as a group, in real life, or whether it's asynchronous, like in non-real time. I mean, not in real life, in real time or asynchronous. And lastly, it works on the idea of prosumption. So basically, if you look at social media, it's a platform. None of the social media companies are actually producing content or producing goods for us to consume or purchase. It's actually the users themselves that are actually producing content and information that other users are actually combining into. So basically, you look at all the videos and, these are the users themselves that are actually using it. So the idea of prosumption is the idea of producing at the same time consuming. So it's an idea of social. So these are the aspects of social media, and these are the areas of social media that we can actually group them into. So yeah, so in a typical class, we go quite deep into understanding social media and knowing your social media as it is. So what about social psychology of social media? So what is a social psychological perspective then, right? We need to take a perspective, because when we want to understand the impact of social media, we can look at it from different perspectives. We can look at it from a scientific perspective. We can look at it from a humanistic perspective. Like, for example, how do cultures get formed? How do countercultures get formed on social media? And we can also look at it from the social psychological perspective, right? So this social psychological view or lens towards understanding social media is basically a study in which people's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are influenced by the real or imagined presence of other people. So we are really interested in people's thoughts, what goes in their mind, how do they evaluate the information on social media, how do they evaluate this information on their mind vis-a-vis the cognitive structures and the experiences that they already have on social media and in real life. We look at the feelings, basically the attitudes of people, right? What kind of attitudes do they hold? How do they allude? How do they go into certain chambers, certain ideological chambers, certain identity groups, certain interest groups, based on the attitudes they hold in these groups? And what makes them want to not join other groups or even prevent other ideas from coming into their groups? This gets very, this is a very important aspect of social media. I mean, especially when it comes to morally loaded or controversial issues such as gender equality, abortion, LGBT. We'll find a lot of users are, finding themselves or making themselves comfortable in their own chambers based on their own attitudes towards those issues. And finally, behaviors. What makes people press the like button? What makes people share the misinformation or the fake news? What makes people comment on a particular issue? What makes people buy a product? What makes people, so a lot of actual behaviors that are done online in the platform and how it translates into actual actions or behaviors that are done offline. What makes a person seeing something on social media would want to go and do something, go to a certain place to really move and petition and walk, and march. So what are the dynamics on social media that influences this behavior? So these are all the social psychological perspective. Another aspect that I want to maybe elaborate on is the real or imagined presence. So what it means by the real or imagined presence is basically humans are reacting to really actual stimulus that they see on social media or in real life, right? That's one, that's the real. Imagined means that they might not even see it, but they infer that whatever kind of likes are based on whatever kind of information and how they should be thinking about this information is really largely based on some group of people or a large group of people. And then this imagined idea of a large group of people then influences them to, for example, to either say something about it, to comment about it, to virtue signal about it. I'm sure all of you heard about virtue signaling, right? When a lot of these things are being done on social media, showing specific support for causes without actually doing it, but signaling virtues to your friends and community of followers. So what makes them want to do it? It might be by an imagined presence. Maybe a more specific idea of imagined presence. If I were to show you, if you were to get somewhere on social media and you see this topic or this news on this particular issue, right? And then you see 1.5K likes, on Facebook, right? Do you think there's a lot of people liking it? But have you ever seen these people liking it? So you imagine that there are a lot of people liking it, right? So that is the idea of imagined presence. It's such heuristic cues. What are the cues on social media? Thank you. That enable people to actually react and act their ways in specific ways, even though they are not real. So in social psychology, we need to consider all these aspects, okay? All right. So just some examples on what is going on social media. We have, like, for example, ideologically oriented networks. How then do we explain the rise of, ideologically driven networks based on identity, the prevalence of interest-based, cause-based communities? What's the size of the network? How do they mobilize online to offline actions that really makes a difference in life? And the problems of homophily, filter bubbles, echo chambers. Why do people actually flock to certain groups on social media? Can we really create common safe spaces on social media? Or is it inevitable due to the fact that people are very comfortable in their own ideologies that social media is, for lack of a better word, doomed to be polarized? That people will move to the left and you'll just find your identity, and over time it will get more and more extreme. Is that the situation in social media? So we ask these kind of questions from the social psychological perspective. And then we have another idea on public opinion perception and formation on social media, which we really need to understand how it's formed and how do people perceive, like for example, the idea that I gave about a large number of likes. It gives the perception that this issue is either well liked or very much hated, but it's just a perception. And what do the effects of this perception of the perceived majority opinion on an issue has on individuals, and how would they act to it? So basically, what it means is that social media has the ability to shape perceptions about which opinions are dominant on the increase, and then which one that we can talk or act on in public without being isolated, right? Because fundamentally, we humans are social animals. That's one of the fundamental assumptions of social psychology, that all of us are social animals and we cannot exist in life alone. By alone means that we can at least have a family member or one friend. And ultimately, our fear is to be socially isolated. So when humans act on social media, they're driven by this assumption or this motivation to not be isolated. So how then does this affect? How does the formation of what do people think, whether people will like me and so forth, enable the person to actually act on social media? This is a theoretical slide, which we always explain to actually enable students to actually understand how do basically the voices of the actual majority get silenced on social media, and actually it's the voices of the minority that gets amplified on social media, and therefore giving the impression that a certain position on an issue is actually more important and bigger than it is online. But it might not necessarily be true offline, because the majority of people holding a certain idea or certain thought on that issue might actually be silent online. You get what I mean? So it means that, yeah, I do not want to belabor. I think I'll just skip this slide, okay, because it can get quite dense. But the idea behind it is ultimately is that when people form, or when social media form, using social media, when people form the impression of public opinion on a certain issue, they then decide on whether they want to actually comment their own personal opinion on the issue or not, right? Unfortunately, they can be driven by a perceived false consensus of that issue. And their opinion, which is reflective of the actual opinion of people in society, are not being expressed. And what is the impact on this, especially on people who are exposed on social media, right? So this is the example of the spiral of silence and the viciousness of the spiral of silence. Now, I'll move on and I quickly go through these characteristics and affordances of social media. So if you all can recall, I presented earlier on that in order to understand societal use or human use of social media and the technology, that affects the use of social media. So basically, the affordances, the characteristics, that's where technology and human interact, right? The affordances, how they interact through the different characteristics and platform. So in social media, basically, again, in a typical classroom setting where I have your attention for 1.5 hours to 1 hour 45 minutes, I will go through at least 14 different characteristics in order for all of us to really understand these characteristics. And but for today's sake, I will just go through 7. And you can actually, what you can do is to have a mapping, a memory mapping of whether this actually, yeah, indeed, whether all these are actually in social media themselves, and how do then we understand these characteristics and affordances to really use social media in effective ways and productive ways. One is the idea of personal. Okay, I'll just share a line or two on this slide. What it means by personal is that we inevitably are not anonymous on social media or new media, right? In the age of social media, right, we have so many social media platforms. We just need to manage them. Eventually, we'll end up with 2 or 3 social media platforms. We will end up with 2 or 3 social media platforms that we use. But ultimately, what it means is that we need to link all these social media platforms into our own identity. And where is this identity? Our email, right? So how many of you have a Gmail account that opens up all your social media? So that Gmail account is primarily your identity, your online identity. So you are linked to one online identity. And that's on the social, commercial kind of. But on the national kind of function, right? All of us are linked to all the services by our SingPass. So SingPass is our identity. So what it means is that eventually social media and new media links to identity. Mass interpersonal sources of information. What it means is on social media, it's no longer mass media. Mass media are important. They have legitimacy, they have credibility. These legacy media such as Channel News Asia, Straits Times, Today Online. But unfortunately, on social media, they are not the only source of information. They are layered with comments. They are layered with juxtaposition of other kind of news sources, other kind of informational sources. So this situation complicates further on how we actually create public opinion, affect human behaviors. Information deluge. What it means is that there are so much information, there's so many information online, and there are different ways in which information is shown. In this case, information is shown in really bite-sized ways that humans are basically cognitive misers. We are all lazy. We do not have the time to actually look at all information. We just scroll down our Facebook feed and we look at cues or indicators that enable us to stop us in our track and create that level of thinking and engagement. So how then do we understand the kind of cues such as expertise cues, identity cues, bandwagon cues that actually manipulate human behavior and thinking? Context collapse is a very basic and simple idea that when it comes to communicating on social media, sometimes people do not want to communicate because they do not know who they are talking to, right? So basically the context in which you're communicating to, you do not know whether you're communicating to your family, you do not know whether you're communicating to your group of friends that share your beliefs, you do not know whether you're communicating to the public. So these contexts are actually collapsed when it comes to communicating on social media. And companies and brands have much difficulty trying to control this because they've always been very clear about targeting, right? To create effective marketing messages, you have to target your audience. But then how do we target audience when we need to start create groups and groups and groups on social media? So these are the challenges that context collapse situation in social media that's happening. Network chambering is basically opinion formation in a very filtered bubble, right? How does it arise in social media? How does it come about in social media, right? So yeah, we discussed the idea of how filter bubbles get formed and the impact of echo chambers on social media. Connectivity and mobility, basically it means that social media is now in a very mobile manner where, at any point in time, somebody will be using the phone and you can't blame that person from using the phone because a situation happens, right? So what it means is the portability of social media is permeated into our everyday lives that, I think I'm running out of time. So maybe I will just go a quick rundown. Okay, maybe another 3 more minutes and then we can take Q&A. And last but not least is the idea of permanence. This is a very distressful aspect of social media, is that nothing on social media is whatever is on social media is already on social media. You can delete it in your WhatsApp group. Now there's a function for WhatsApp for you to delete it or any kind of information, but you can always take a screenshot and whatever that you put online becomes permanent. It has a lot of impact on society, individual lives, even to our young children, especially when it comes to bullying, especially when it comes to negative kind of behaviors on social media. Imagine this situation where a bullying situation where your younger brother or sister, or you might become teachers and you see students in primary school and their photos being uploaded, an embarrassing photo of them being uploaded on social media. It might be a naked photo or because of the permanent nature of social media, the impact is very disastrous. They might be thinking that, look, oh man, my future is ruined. People will always get to see this photo. People will always be able to see, I have no longer a future. So the impact of the permanence on digital media largely and social media and how it spreads to others and how others can screenshot and save it has a very strong impact in society. And what we speak and what we act to others are really very, very important, right? So these are the aspects. I spent 1 minute to share with you what we do in specifically understanding these concepts, understanding these values, understanding the way social media works, and then channel it in the classroom to create social impact. All right. So, for example, in CNM, when in one of our modules, we do a project called Social Media for Social Good. And it's targeted at the younger users. Basically, most of us, not myself, I already have 4 kids, so maybe I'm not so young, but I know most of you are younger users. But what we do in that class is to learn essential job skills and accrue social capital. How do students learn essential job skills in this module and accrue social capital by working with industry, by working with other people outside of the classroom. And then we create, in this class, students create platform to showcase their technological savvy and creativity, basically using social media to achieve specific outcomes. And students in this class, for example, are empowered and connected through inter-industry engagement. We make them go out and really just, work with the industry or work with organizations out there, be it profit-driven or non-profit-driven organizations. Some students will work on projects to promote civic engagement. So we discussed the idea of what is civic engagement and how do you create impact, social impact through civic engagement. And last but not least, to spread social awareness and kindness. Sometimes you do not need to use social media to gain profits, or to change society, but we can use social media to actually promote civic kindness. And so this is the module, Strategic Communication Design. So I've been teaching this module for quite some time, and a lot of my faculty members and colleagues are actually teaching this module. This is in Malay. Basically, it's a Malay news. Basically, it says, how far can social media be used to spread goodness, to spread wellness in society, right? So this is an example of recognition from the projects in the class. One group has actually received a certificate of recognition from the Ministry of MCCY, I think Ministry of Community and Youth Development. Basically, the idea of this class is to identify a beneficiary or segment in society and then create and execute a set of communication strategies using social media in order to make a change in society via these groups, right? For example, they need to go on social media. This is actual projects, so they go on Facebook to crowdsource, to crowdfund, using the idea of social psychology and the understanding they have and how to actually get money to actually fund their projects. They use ideas and concepts and explain how, what kind of messages work on social media, what kind of messages get the engagement, and through what kind of thinking process do humans engage in to actually make it more effective. And they actually carry it out, they execute it, right? For example, in this one group, they did 22 children, a birthday celebration for a group of children who do not have parents in a family service center. So they had 6 birthday children, 22 children attended. So these are children what do you call children? These are children, not fostered children, but they are kids who do not have parents, do not celebrate birthdays. So they thought they would do a little bit of good using social media in the class. And then we have all the other kind of examples of using Instagram for blood donation. How do you create memes, and how do you create and so forth. And finally, also the social capital. How do they then ultimately bring and create networks of people in the industry, in the classroom, and use and accrue them as social capital to bring them forward beyond the classroom and into the real life when they start working, so forth. So this is another example of an event of blood donation where they get quite a bit of blood donors to come. That's it. Thank you so much. I'm sorry that I've made. Okay. Q&A.
Yeah, thanks very much, Prof. We do have some time for Q&A, so if you have any questions, please use the mics in either aisle. This is also so that people online can hear the questions. Yeah, so please go ahead. But maybe just to start us rolling, we do have a question that has come in online that is about CNM in NUS and whether there is a division between the comms aspect of it and the new media aspect of it, and is there a certain focus that is put on either, or yeah.
Okay. Actually, in CNM, yes, we do have differences. We do enable students to actually go deep on a specific aspect of it. Basically, the 4 aspects are interactive media design, right? If you want to go deep into how do you understand how to create media, design media, and to create actual products of media, such as games, videos. So that's one aspect of it. And that's the new media aspect, the media psychology aspect, where you really understand the use of media in marketing or in kind of communication, more communication driven. And then we have the cultural studies aspect, right? So these cultural studies, the cultural studies of the aspect look at how cultures, how images are being portrayed in media and how to make sense of them. And the communication management aspect. So the communication management is more of writing for new media, more new media kind of journalism and report writing, more public relations, more strategic communications. So we do have these areas but we do not, students can choose to, take a lot of modules in this area to deep skill, but ultimately it's not enough. They will need to require to take across different set of areas to actually deepen their skills as well as broaden their skills. So I hope that answers the question. Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions from the floor, from the live audience? Okay, if not, maybe we do still have some time.
Okay.
Prof, do you have any advice? So I'm assuming that these students are thinking about where to go in the future and things like that. Any advice for incoming students, ways that they can prepare, ways that they can start thinking about university education? How is different from maybe what they've experienced before?
Okay, well, it's just a very candid kind of advice. I just had a discussion at the polys just yesterday. And we are looking at how the polys actually relate to university education, and then how the university education then relate to whatever education comes after the university education. So if I have one advice for all of incoming students, do not look at your university life or education as the final stage. What it means is that it's not the final aspect of learning. Okay? What you should be doing, and when you're starting to pick your courses in university, is to first look at it as the first degree, okay? And when you start looking at it as the first degree, then you will know that the value or the aim that you should be getting from a university education is not to actually go out and work, but it's actually to go out and create a new mind, a new way of thinking that would enable you to pursue continuous learning. You get what I mean? And it has to be cultivated right at university. If you cultivate a wrong mindset at university that I'm just going to go out and get my degree and going to up to the industry and work, at the end of the university education, you realize that your mindset is already closed. You're not picking up the right skills that will enable you to think, that will enable you to be more open-minded towards continuous learning. So that's my first advice. Come into a course or come into your major knowing that it's your first degree, knowing that you are actually wanting to pick the mindset, the soft skills that will enable you to continuously learn. Some of these soft skills are critical thinking, mental resilience, being able to pace yourself for the long run, and so forth. So that's my first advice. My second advice is, I don't speak on behalf of CHS. I don't do CHS administration. But I think all of you are coming in from the CHS, so you will be encountering a dichotomy. I would say a false dichotomy between science and arts and social sciences or the humanities. I would encourage all of you to go past this false dichotomy. Right? That, okay, I'm a science student and therefore I'm just science oriented. I've always been science kind of driven since it's easier for me, and therefore I should just focus on that route and just do well in my studies. So that mindset has to change, right? I'm not saying that it's not good. I'm not saying that, you shouldn't be deepening your skills. But what I'm saying is that at the same time, when you feel that you have that kind of approach, you're a very science person, you need to be able to think in a broader way. Basically, knowing that, how can humanities and social science enrich your want, or your wanting to actually be very deep in a very scientific kind of area of inquiry. This is very, very important, right? Because otherwise you are entering university education like a polytechnic or like a vocation. Nothing wrong with that, but the idea is to, again, broaden and broaden. So again, what it means is that you are in currently a very crucial juncture in your life where you pick a pathway for education that your choice will lead you to either go deep and narrow, or your choice would then allows you to open up, right? I would always pick the latter with the mindset that, you can always go deep, but the ability to open up and take new things and learn new things is much more important in today's ever-changing industry landscape. Yeah, so that's.
Yeah, thanks, Prof.
Okay.
If there are no further questions, I think we can draw this session to a close. Thank you very much, Prof. Elmie, for spending your time today. Now, for everyone else, thank you very much again for joining us this morning. If you have further questions, you can check out our website, chs.nus.edu.sg, okay, chs.nus.edu.sg, or you can send an email to askchs, askchs@nus.edu.sg. Now, after this, if you have already registered for the walking tour, please head outside to the tour booth to begin your tour. So unfortunately, due to safe management measures, we do have limited capacity for these tours, and we are only accepting pre-sign-ups. Yeah. Otherwise, please feel free, of course, to take a walk around the campus, take a shuttle bus down to U-Town, where there are other activities throughout the day. Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone, and have a great day at NUS. Thank you.